G'day, welcome to the Motorsport Review. I am your host, Perry Brown. Apologies for the awful Australian accent, but I just had to because today, although there's no Formula One, that gives us a chance to look at another series. And if you hadn't guessed already, today we're going to look at the Repco Australian Supercars Touring Car Championship. I can't remember what it's called. I want to call it the V8 Supercars because that's how it was when I first heard about it. But now it's just known as the Supercars Championship, which is a difficult thing to Google, by the way, if you research it for a podcast ever, because you just get supercars. But I'm delighted to say that joining me on this journey today, down under, is Louis from Brazil. Louis, how are you today? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. Great. Thanks for the invite. Hopefully we can travel together on this crazy journey around the Repco Supercars series. Yeah, it's a really mouthful thing to say. Is really difficult. I heard it as V8 Supercars as well when I was a kid. So now having to say Repco Supercars Touring Championships, like, just be V8 Supercars, bro. Don't need to be anything else.
I mean, I even saw it referred to just as it's the Australian Touring Car Championship. And having last reviewed before the Miami Grand Prix, the British Touring Car Championship, that would have been a lot easier. But of course, as things go with sponsorship, they became Repco and they decided they were going to call themselves the Supercars Championship. So many people got different names.
Actually, originally it was the Australian Touring Car Series. You remember the story about the Godzilla, the old R32 GTR, the Calzone Blue GTR. So
yes,
the Repco Supercars originally deviated from that because on the Australian Touring Car Series, there was the brackets of divisions, and the top division was the V8 Supercars, as they were known at the time. And disputing with them, it was the GTRs, the BMWs, the Ferraris, the McLarens, all those cars. They raced together inside the V8 category. It's just the name, not exactly every car run a V8. But they were getting their ass whooped by the GTRs, the BMWs and stuff. And because the ancient war between Holden and Ford was very present at the time, because Australians and New Zealanders always have or a Holden or a Ford Falcon, a Holden Commodore, this stuff. So when other brands from Europe, from Japan started to come in and rip the crap out of those guys, they were like, nah, we need to have a articulated thing. So I think in 1994, maybe, they created their own thing. It became the V8 Supercars, were just Holden versus Ford. And since then, it's just became their own entity.
I'm glad I got you on, because that's exactly why I invite someone that watches the series week in, week out on, because you knew all of that before. I've written in my notes about this was classically Ford versus Holden. I didn't even consider that there was a before time even of that, because as we'll get into later, it's not even Ford versus Holden right now. And when I was watching that, I was a bit like, this doesn't feel the same series that I used to race on games from like the early noughties or used to watch in like the 2010s. So yeah, it's interesting that Japan came over. I know Nissan had a stint. They came back into the series. They opened up the regulations to that.
Yeah, that was in 2013. They chose to open the series to other manufacturers. So Volvo came in, Nissan came in, Mercedes came in as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it was a very short-lived thing. I think it was a tops 3 years because it's so expensive to make those cars. People may look at it and just think, oh, it's just maybe a GT3 car adapted. No, it ain't. It's basically, you take a GT3 chassis that we know today from the LMGT3 regulations. You take the chassis, you take a bubble of carbon fiber or fiberglass, put around the car, but the regulations are so restrictive about it because it needs to get a certain level of drag, a certain level of downforce, because they have almost none. It's a split, how's the name of this? It's a split front spoiler in two parts. There's a bump underneath, and the wings that comes just a little bit over the front bumper and the rear wing. That's it for downforce. The rest is just the body, is the natural body of the car, and skinny slick tires. I think it's 300 millimeters on the back and 275 at the front. The same thing for the second generation. That was when the regulations expanded. But the reason why you say the championship feels a bit more soulless right now is because in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, General Motors closed down the Holden factory, so there's no more Holden being sold in Australia or New Zealand, and they replaced the body, and the whole teams that use the Holden now use the Chevy Camaro. And that was something that really rubbed the fans the wrong way, because the core thing about this championship is Holden versus Ford, and Chevy versus Ford doesn't have the same ring to it. It's not NASCAR. In NASCAR, we have Ford versus Chevy for decades, on and on and on. So when you change something that the fans really love, and the cars were literally it, you saw a Holden Commodore on the supercars and the old Falcon. You could just bought those cars straight from the factory. It was literally the same cars, just adapted to race. Now with the Gen 3 car that was launched in 2023, things changed a lot, because the let's start with the technical aspects of the cars. So the Camaro and the Mustang, they have completely different bodies, they have completely different engines. And the thing is, what worked in the Gen 2 of the supercars that started between 2006 all the way to 2022 was that it was the same body for everyone, just the bubble of the car they wanted to use, the same engine for everybody, same power plant, same transmission, and all of that, but it was all made in house. So everything was specific for that car. Even though it was a spec series, everything was built in house for each team. We have the hierarchy of teams. So the one that most likely would be known outside of the supercars is the AAA engineering that sometimes race in the GT World Challenge and some other categories. I don't remember exactly now. And they are the top team to Chevrolet. They helped develop the Chevy Camaro for this Gen 3, and the same thing for Ford. At the time, we had Penske on the supercars, and before they left,
Yeah.
they helped develop the Mustang to use in the series. But each manufacturer and wanted the cars to sound like the products they were selling. The Camaro to sound like Camaro, Mustang sound like the Mustang. But how can you keep the level playing field with cars with different engines? Because the Camaro used a pull rod V8 and the Mustang was a quad cam V8, a 5.4 liters. So that's where I applaud the supercars commission stewards, because they said, okay, build the engines the way you want, bring them to us. We will fine tune to have the same power coverage, the same amount of horsepower, the same amount of torque, the same power lineage, and the same torque lineage. So everything's the same for everybody. It's 650 horsepower, if I'm not mistaken. The same power, the same amount of power is delivered equally to everyone. In the graphics, you can see the same curve for torque as well. That's something I applaud them for on your regulations. The issue is that those cars, they have very sensitive tires. They don't respond very well. And that's where you can see the difference in opinions of fans, that since this Gen 3 car got introduced, drivers are not happy when driving outside of qualifying, because it's a very tough car. My opinion is that probably the toughest touring car series to drive ever, because normally when you see a driver downshift, you see them just use the paddles or the sequential and just banging downshifts and pressing the brake pedal. Those guys, when they upshift, they're just normal sequential gearbox, 6 speed, just pull the lever back and go for it. Downshift, they need to heel toe. So they need to
Yeah.
pedal the brake a bit before to get the pressure back on. And they need to heel toe every single downshift.
And I think
Pressing
we
the clutch.
saw when we get into the racing, reviewing the racing, I mean, I didn't know that. I'm coming into it fresh this weekend, so I didn't know the intricacies of the technical aspects. I read a bit about the homologation of the cars, and as you say, so on one side you got one team homologating the chassis, the engines on Chevrolet's side, and you got someone doing it on Ford's side, which I think is great. And then they share them out, and it's kind of like in Formula One, you know, Mercedes make the unit, the power units, and then go, McLaren can have these two, they've got slightly less numbers, Williams can have these two, and so on. But they make the cars and then they just send them all, and then they get designated, so it is fair. They can't make a chassis slightly lighter and go, we'll give it to our guys.
Yeah.
So it is great, and it's an FIA series. I didn't realize it's an FIA series either, so we have to give them the credit, which again Formula One fans might be a bit downbeat about. Like, we don't give the FIA credit, but I was a bit surprised to find that out today, that it's an FIA accredited
Now,
series. And
I am surprised that I found that out, because I didn't know the Repco Supercars was anything related to the FIA. I thought it was their own entity. Now
yeah,
I'm surprised.
I thought it would be as well, like something like that, or a touring car one, or a GT one. But yeah, it's an FIA series. So yeah, it was fun finding out about that. And as you said, that the downforce level has been trimmed a lot. Watching it, you can see all of this play out. They're making mistakes when they're braking for corners, when they're downshifting off the line. One of the guys gets it wrong. You can see him shift to second and get it wrong. And I like that. We like watching series where the drivers make mistakes, because that's ultimately the battleground. So I think they've got the technicalities of these cars absolutely spot on. It might not be the classic Ford versus Holden that we know, that we grew up with, but we got Ford versus Chevrolet. It's interesting you noted NASCAR as well. It feels very American. And as of next season, we've got Toyota joining the Australian Supercars as well. So it's NASCAR again. It's like NASCAR, but put them on a normal track in a decent series that wants to go around lefts and rights, not just ovals all the time. So yeah, it was really interesting. I absolutely loved watching it. It's a bit of a spoiler for the end, like when we get into reviewing whether we enjoyed it. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. That, you know, the fact they're making mistakes. There was no runaway like Ford team just dominating and no one close. Because I think a few years ago, again, when they introduced the Mustang, it was so quick and they had to pin it back. And again, they did that really well through the process of balanced performance in other series, as you called it. So yeah, it's a brilliant series. I mean, I've discovered that a lot when watching a lot of these series, that they're all brilliant series out there. You just got to give them a chance. The only problem that I had was trying to actually watch the series, and we spoke a little bit beforehand. I said that when I started this podcast, I thought I'd just log on to YouTube and they'd all be there, like full races or live races even. And was very unfortunate to find that although there's many options, they're all paid for. Again, it's another one behind the paywall. So I refuse to pay for the SuperView subscription that they put out on YouTube. That's a roughly £47.66 a year if you want to watch Supercars. That's the reaction I had.
If you change that to the money we use in Brazil, we're talking about quite easily 300, 400 maybe for a year subscription to watch one racing series. Maybe
you do get the support pieces, but I mean, I don't know what they are. And let's face it, if you're paying for that subscription, you're paying for the Supercar Championship. You're not paying for the, you know, if there's a Toyota support series, normally I'd expect they'd have or something like that under there. So
they have one. It's called the Super S2. They are literally, that's where I think the Supercar series is brilliant. They take the last generation of Supercars and just say, you know what, you guys need to train to maybe go to the Supercars one day. Take the older generation and have fun. That's literally it. They take the old generation of cars. So we still have Holden versus Ford, but on the Super 2. So the Super S2000s is straight up old Holden cars, old Ford Falcons, old Mustangs, and just go flat out racing. That's really cool.
You're making the £47.66 a year sound more worth it. But there was a second option in the UK. We've got TNT Sports, which has come up before, because we've got World Endurance Championship on TNT. When I tried to, I was going to say NASCAR, but that wasn't on there. MotoGP is on TNT, and I'm going to find that quite a lot is on there. I think it's very broad. So again, that's £31 a month, and that to me is now starting to sound very tempting.
Way more appealing. More appealing.
Just got to try and get it by the wife. I think if I was to ever lose complete faith, if we were to get a repeat of Abu Dhabi 2021, but like 10 times worse, and I was going to go completely from Formula One and go, no, I'm absolutely done, then I think I'd get TNT and I'd be happy with all the series on that channel and ditch Sky F1.
Oh yeah, easy. Like we here in Brazil, we have maybe 2 or 3 channels we can watch racing series of multiple categories. Like Insta, you said we can watch on YouTube everywhere in the world, but here in Brazil we can watch from a journalistic website. Then now they have their own television. It's called the Gran Premio TV. We watch IMSA, TCR South America. We watch the World Endurance Championship, Formula E from them. They're still trying to acquire other rights to broadcast those races in here, but geez, is really nice the job they're doing. The shame is that mostly other series are behind, like you said, a paywall, and the
Mm.
reach over here is so little that we basically can't watch it anymore. Just for example, last year we had the NASCAR Cup Series available for us to watch either live on YouTube or on the open channel for television on the band. Yeah, yeah, is a television called Band. Here, they broadcast Formula One and the NASCAR Cup Series simultaneously most of the time. But unfortunately, this year they couldn't renew the contract for the broadcasting rights, so we don't have any kind of NASCAR Cup Series coverage of Brazil anymore. So that sucks in a way.
Yeah, it does. You kind of, it's like any streaming service now. Like we're
Yeah,
we're the suckers that pay for Netflix, Prime, Disney, and then they go, oh, and you can subscribe to Paramount and Apple. And I'm like, no, I'm already paying enough. Can I just have one subscription where I get the TV shows I want
yeah,
and not pay for the stuff I don't want? And motorsport's going that way, so it's quite refreshing when doing this podcast and going, okay, quite a few are behind the TNT paywall. At least you can assess it and go, okay, but I'm going to get this. So maybe that's something for the end of the year when it gets to December and there's not much racing going on. I'll sit and go, right, I found that if I pay this much, this is the series that I'm going to get versus paying for Sky Sports F1. So yeah, it'd be something to keep an eye on. So yeah, if you're willing to pay for TNT, this is another series you're going to get in the UK. But let's cut it back to Australian Supercars. I'm still saying it wrong. I can't just say
no,
Repco
you can
Supercars
say,
Championship.
no, you
But
can say Australian Supercars is the way people can refer to it, because saying all the time Repco Supercars Touring Championship is a mouthful. We can say all the time. So V8 Supercars, Australian Supercars, I think it's better for just reference overall.
I'm not going to get hired by Repco Supercars Championship. I got it right that time. I'm not going to be hired by them to work for them anytime soon. So
Nah,
I can
I
play
know,
safe and just call it the V8 Supercars, whatever I want to. But yeah, they were racing this weekend at Simmons Plain. Now I didn't realize at first, because again it was advertised like the Tasmania 440
yeah,
or the something caravan, Summer Cruises Caravan. Again, not working for them. Summer Cruises Caravans race of I can't remember what it was
that
called, but anyway, the
you just
Tasmania
pointed
Super
out.
400.
You just pointed out one of the reasons that this particular season fans are not happy with supercars at all, because you can clearly see on the notes we saw earlier. You pointed out that so far from 13 rounds, nobody won more than 3 races, and Cam Waters completely dominated the first round, winning all 3 races. In this crazy final of the second race was really good. But the problem is, so many racetracks over Australia and New Zealand got shut down for financial reasons or bought by real estate companies and torn apart to make, buildings, parking lots, and stuff. So the calendar is so small right now that they need to compensate somewhat. So just so you know, last year we had 26 races in 26 different tracks, and some of them had 2 races. Now we have just 13 rounds, and from those 13 rounds, every round has 3 races. So that's kind of a, bro, what's the point of racing 3 times on the same track? That's where the regulations for this year on the format of racing is really upset some of the fans, because if you go for the YouTube channel of the Supercars and you search for the 2025 regulations, we'll see that there's 3 different aspects. There's the Sprint Cup, the Enduro Cup, and the finals. If you take
Okay.
NASCAR, for example, there's the playoffs. There's the regular season. There's 26 races. The top 16 of those 26 races go for the playoffs. After each 3 races, there's the elimination. 4 drivers are out after 3 races. Then there's 12. Then there's 8. Then there's the final 4. When the final race of the 10 race playoff are choosing the champion. Supercars took this idea from NASCAR and implemented on supercars. That's a very gimmicky way to choose a champion, because one race deciding who's the champion is not a really nice thing to do. Even if
We
a
When we
final
discussed
round,
NASCAR, we said the same thing. It's very hard to follow. You're sort of going, oh, who's leading the championship now? And I've raced in a sim championship where they decided to do this, where one year it was just the straightforward way. You acquire points,
A full season championship. Yeah.
and you push every weekend. And then the next year they went, we're going to do a promotion relegation style. And so you're going, well, I'm winning races, but if I'm sitting in third place, I'm thinking I'm not at any threat of being demoted at this point. So I'm just going to stay third. So for 3/4 of the year, you're just racing, just going, I'm not going to get relegated. I just have to be there for the final 3 races. So I don't like this sort of cup style race. I didn't know that. So I was sort of kind of hoping, you know, you're the experienced head of the Australia on this podcast. So I didn't realize that. I thought they're racing for the championship. I put a thing in there about how close the championship's looking. So yeah, it's interesting. So if they're just trying to stay in the championship fight, and if it's changed that way, then all of the positives that I had for the format, and it being 3 races a weekend, and it being really interesting racing, probably as a new fan, it swings and roundabouts. I think that's the beauty of coming into something new. Sometimes you just see it with those fresh eyes and go, this is brilliant, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. But at the same time, the older fans sit there and go, oh, you're a new, is there like a DTS fan equivalent in Australia that you can like diminish someone with and go, oh, you're new, you've only come in since Chevrolet?
Thankfully no.
Good.
There's
Good.
no.
I'm not saying go out there and call people DTS fans. I'm just saying I'm one of those people that you can diminish me. You can talk to me and say you're too new, you're too fresh to Supercars. No. But honestly, I love giving things a chance. I love giving these series a chance. I really enjoyed watching the racing that we're now gonna get into. And I think one of the things that I loved the most about it when we were watching it is that you've got Australian commentators that are passionate about it. And again, one of the things we talk about when you listen to a podcast you want to enjoy, you want to feel like you're in the room with them having a conversation. Will Buxton was brilliant for this in Formula 2, Formula 3, really got me into those series. He now just feels like he's there having a...
Is great. Have you seen any broadcast from Will on IndyCar?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Nah, he's really good. I don't know why they never put it on a broadcast for any Formula 1 race on the F1 TV. I really wanted to see one after hearing his commentary on the IndyCar. I was like, what the hell are they doing with you? Just be up.
We're very lucky. So again, Sky Sports F1, we get IndyCar on Sky Sports F1, so we do get to watch that. And I've got something very special next week that I'm not going to ruin just yet. Coming just a teaser, just a teaser. But yeah, obviously we're in the month of May, so keep an eye out next week for something that may be coming out or will be coming out. I know it will be, but yeah. But what you want to feel like from the commentators, they're in the room, you're having a chat with them, you're just friendly. It's just sitting in a bar watching a race, and the people are talking to you, and you want to feel like you're involved. And I absolutely love the commentators from this. Some of the statements that they came out, I got quotes throughout the races. So there was a boomer of a start by Randall at one point. There was he's right on his hammock was one when he's like really close behind. I got he said he's giving him an ice cream headache, I think, when he came out on fresh tires, getting his ears boxed. There was another one, I'm sure. He changed all 4 tires in one of his pit stops and said, oh, it's like he's got a grip birthday. I thought that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I loved watching it for that reason, that I just could get straight on board. It was like that the Foster's advert that you get, the 2 people just sat there having a drink and just chilling on a beat. It felt like that whilst watching racing. So I did absolutely loved that side of it. So yeah, the race, should we get into talking about the racing? So interesting you mentioned that Cam Waters did the hat trick. I was really excited watching this, thinking that Feeney was going to do that this weekend. He's in one of the leads, the AAA racing teams, as you said. So he's in one of the, like, if you like, the leading Chevrolets, the Red Bull Ampel. I was going to say Holden then, the Red Bull Ampel Chevrolet. It looks like it should be a Holden to me. I'm like, it should be a Holden. But anyway, he was in that car. His teammate Will Brown leading the championship. And he came in, he won race 1 brilliantly. He won race 2. It looked a bit closer. And then going into race 3, I thought he came so close, didn't he, to creating that hat trick and taking all three of the wins. So what did you think of Feeney this weekend? Was that a standout performance, or was this pretty typical of him so far this season?
Look, Brock Feeney is still relatively new to the Supercars series. He just debuted, I think, in 2023. replacing the now team principal of AAA engineering and Rebel Racing. Jesus Christ, I just forgot his name right now. Oh, Jamie Winkup. Jamie Winkup
Oh yeah.
is a seven-time series champion, and he used to race for AAA engineering. And just so you know, AAA engineering and Rebel Racing, they are the Ferrari equivalent of supercars. The most titles, the most prestigious team, the biggest organization ever. But funny thing is, if a AAA car is fighting for the win and it don't win, people are pissed off. That's the expectations. A AAA car needs to win, especially when it was James Winkup behind the wheel or Shane Van Gisbergen. Jesus. Shane Van Gisbergen and Jamie Winkup are two monsters behind the wheel on the AAA engineering car. Just so you know, if people think 2023 Max Verstappen was absurd, let me introduce you to Shane Van Gisbergen in 2022. That sucker had 23 race wins. What the hell is that?
Really? From how many? From 26 races, 23 from 26 was that, or 23?
36. 23 race wins from 36 races, and he never finished outside maybe the top 4.
Wow. So
It's just
yeah,
insanity.
he's is he? Am I right? He's in NASCAR now. He's switched over to NASCAR, because that was one of the things I'd forgotten about Jamie Winkup. That was a name that I knew when Triple Eight Racing used to be silver and red. They looked like a McLaren, like a 2008 McLaren, because they used to have Vodafone years ago.
Yeah.
And I always knew Craig Lowndes as well. As a big name. But again, we spoke about IndyCar, and Scott McLaughlin is a big name from the series, has now gone to IndyCar. I remember him going over there thinking, okay, he's raced Australian supercars, but IndyCar's very different, and he's doing okay over there, isn't he? So it shows that some really top names have come out of this championship and gone and done really great things elsewhere. So it's got some real talent. The talent pool is huge, and we saw a bit of that. I don't know if you watched Race of Champions this year. I think it was like February. It was in Sydney, and we had Chaz Mostert, who I'm a bit of a fan of because of Race of Champions, and he raced for one of Zach Brown's team as a McLaren fan. Chaz Mostert, Will Brown, and Brad Kostelecki.
Yeah, right? I think it is. He's one of the drivers, the newer drivers from the series right now. I'm barely remembering because unfortunately he's on a back marker team, so he's not really on the spotlight. Forget about him.
I noted he's switched pre-season to the Dick Jones Racing. Well, it's called the Monster Castrol Racing Team, but
that's a really good
team. The team that homologate the Fords. So it's like the top 4 team that he's now racing for. So they've identified him as a talent for the future. But I absolutely loved watching Race Champion, and these Australian guys just there, just hanging out and just having fun. And they did really well. They got to the final. Australia got to the final.
Yeah. Both of the Nations Cup and the Drivers' Cup, they got really well. I was surprised by their performance because I was thinking, is it really Chad Mostert the best option for representing the supercars? Because I was thinking, maybe if they give it a call, Shane could have done something. Maybe Jamie or even Brock Finney. I was thinking even Brody Kostecki, because he's the reigning series champion. Oh no, sorry, that's Will Brown. My bad. I forgot because
he was there.
They used to be teammates in the Erebus Chevrolet team in the past.
Okay.
But I thought they would call up maybe the reigning champion in Will Brown or even Shane Van Gisbergen for just the hell of it. But they chose Chad Mostert. I was like, is that really the best option? But Brock Finney was there as well. And I'll be honest, I was surprised with his performance and how adaptable he was to the rallycross cars, the Jeep cars, the bogies. He was really well. Even against a monster like Sebastian Loeb, Jesus, he was really putting a run for his money on the Race of Champions.
Again, we talk about the talent pool. The talent pool for Race of Champions, you can turn around and go, some of them are getting on a bit, but when you put these people behind the wheel of a race car, something switches in them. And again, it was this whole talk of like, oh, Verstappen's got a kid now last weekend, and it will change him. But these people out here, their kids are like teenagers almost. They've done their racing, they've had their time. They're 7-8 time champions in whatever they've done. They're now just hanging around having fun with cars. And the next thing, you put them in Race of Champions, and there's a crossover and there's a jump and there's a bridge, and you think, oh, they're going to take it, flying over the top of that and giving it absolutely everything. And the other thing was talking to their engineers and going, how can I get the most out of this KTM crossbow?
Yes.
We're talking about Race of Champions. I've just realized we're talking about Race, but it does underline how competitive these drivers are, and as I say, this talent pool that V8 Supercars has. So don't be surprised if these drivers like Will Brown, the Chaz Mosterts, Brock Feeney, if they go on and appear in other series that you're currently watching and appear somewhere else.
Just so you know, a few drivers from the Supercars already made a few crossover races in the NASCAR Cup Series and IMSA sometimes. The most recent I can remember is Brody Kostecki making a few races with Richard Childress Racing last year, and maybe this year he will do some more. So those guys are already testing the waters someplace else because, like we spoke before, they are not really happy with this Gen 3 car because qualifying is great, but during the races, it just sucks because they can't push flat out like they used to. They hold back, they keep tires preserved. Even Dunlop launched a new compound of tires this season just to help it out. It worked. Some of the races we saw was great, even the finales of it, but drivers are not happy with the cars, specifically because this is almost unanimous for every single person who ever driven these cars, be Formula One drivers, be endurance drivers, or any kind of discipline you want to name it. They said that out loud, supercars are the most difficult racing cars to drive because you gain or lose time by how you use the brake pedals, because there's no ABS, there's no electronic systems to helping you out. It's just your right foot and how you can use it. Because the most important thing about driving a supercar and getting time out of it is what do you do after the braking phase, because you need to heel toe to avoid rear locking, is how you release the brake pressure, how you make the car go around a corner with the car just rolling, because the tire is really narrow, there's little to no downforce. So it's a car that really needs a driver's hand and how you use the brakes, because you see some humongous dive bomb from a country mile back and they just go for it.
They're never going to get stopped, but they just go for it anyway. I mean, I've got to be honest, when you hear this in Formula One as well, when they don't like the Pirelli control tires, when there's the Dunlop control tire here and the drivers don't like it, honestly, my ears and my senses do a little bit of this, like, oh, actually, I kind of like that. I don't want the drivers to like the tire. That's part of what I'm like. If the drivers don't like it and they're going, it's already difficult enough, I'm like, good, you're going to earn your money and I'm going to enjoy watching you earn your money. So it is interesting. You've got to keep them happy at the same time. So hopefully it's a good balance, because what I saw, again, watching this event for the first time, I absolutely loved the format, because so what you had was 2 sprint races, 50 laps at Simmons Plain. It's quite a short track. There's not many corners, so they got through them pretty quickly, but 50 lap races. They had to pit one time to swap, but they could only swap. They could choose basically to swap 2 tires for a quicker stop, or do all 4, take a bit more time in the pit, but have that grip birthday to benefit from that later in the race. And then you've got the main race where it's two pit stops, but now you've got refueling from a 25 kilo Bowser that they sort of attach to the car and get going. Now that's only 76 laps, 78 laps, I think it was. So it wasn't that much longer. So you're talking about a 45-minute race becoming an hour, 12-minute race. And I loved it. I really loved that it wasn't a longer race. Over the weekend, you got a total of over 2 hours of racing. And if every race had its own strategy as well, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So you're saying that it's not popular, that there's these free races and that there's all this strategy. But again, as a fresh-faced, you're one of those Chevrolet fans that people get turned around as, or something like that. Actually, the bit that I enjoyed is angering fans that have been with the series for so long. So I loved it.
No, it's not a bad thing at all. I'm trying to find a balance between liking the series and having my reserves, because now that they introduced those Sprint Cups, Enduro Cups, and the finals, the point system is just all over the place. I mean, I even needed to, I'm not kidding. If I watch a highlight on the YouTube, I need to open a Wikipedia page just to see how the format is for each race to understand how many points they're getting, up to which place they get. At least they still keep the 5 points for fastest lap, but still, you get from 50 points for a short race on sprint up into 150 points for a race like the Bathurst 1000, which is an Enduro Cup race. There's two Enduro Cup races this year. There's the Bathurst 1000, then there's two drivers. They split the seats from each other. And there's another race, is a 500-kilometer
It's the
race. I don't
Adelaide.
remember. Yeah, I think it's the Adelaide one. Those two races are the Enduro Cup, and the points overall, 150 points for the winner, and he's digressing all the way to the last place. So having those different point systems for different races, and we already have the playoff format, it's so unnecessarily complicated to follow the championship that we are like, I'm just watching race by race. I don't give a damn about the championship anymore.
That's the way to do it, I think. Just watch it. Just watch it as the racing. And I mentioned AD21. I'll go back to that because my dad mentioned supercars. Basically, at that point, he said, "I'm done with F1." He came back to it very quickly, but he said, "I'm done with F1. I actually enjoy the supercars more." So, shout out to my dad. I ignored you, as all good kids do to their parents. Don't listen to your parents' advice. But on that point, happy Mother's Day to everyone that isn't in the UK. Apparently, it's Mother's Day today that we're recording. So yeah, do listen to your parents.
I don't know what else. I don't know where else in the globe is Happy Mother's Day, but today it is Mother's Day here in Brazil. So yeah, thank you.
So listen to your mums, not your dads, about racing. That's what I'm trying to get to. So, yeah, my dad's gonna message me, I'm sure, about this and say, "I told you so," and I'm going like, "Yes, you've been telling me that for 36 years. All right, I don't listen to you. Just move on." Okay, so thanks for listening to me on the podcast, Dad. But yes, I absolutely love this championship. I loved watching it. I think that's the way to watch it. Don't worry about the championship. Just enjoy the racing because it was so close. And we covered this with the British touring cars as well. Like, a lot of the racing is door to door, but there's a bit of contact. But if there's too much of it, they actually do go ahead and penalise it. Touring cars, I think, unless you rip a bumper off, they sort of go, "Yeah, well, give or take," isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the beauty of touring car racing, isn't it? They allow contact, but limited one. You can do a bump and just take him off the line and you go for it, for the move. That's okay. But purposely spinning somebody, sending them to the wall, do a Verstappen of sorts, it's something that's like,
Other Formula One drivers are available.
I'm sorry, but the biggest example we have of somewhat of a big vigorous of some sort is Max. I'm sorry. Yeah. He takes the racing to the extreme. He's on the line. So if you want to be somebody who play by the rule book, I'm sorry, you ain't gonna get too far in the supercars. But if you're a Max Verstappen, you're gonna be champion. That's for sure.
I mean, we saw that move from, I think it was Chaz Mostert, who he gave a little tap to the car in front of him, and by the time that car hit the car ahead of him, hit the car ahead of him, hit him into a spin, and then he just drove around the outside of all three of them around the corner. I'm pretty sure he would have got a penalty for that because, someone spun off the back of it. But I thought that right there, that is the touring car move. Just a little tap just to push them offline. But yeah, it's good to see, that it's pretty clean that they do race side by side. Sometimes it got a little bit of contact, but I love that most of the time it didn't resort to that contact. It was very clean racing. It was very good racing going on. So yeah, it was a joy to watch that. And then, as I say, you get strategy to race. I got to be honest, every time I watch one of these series, I get more and more problems and dilemmas with scheduling, because I go, I want to add this now to my collection of motorsports that I watch. And I don't know how to. I can't find the time for the ones I do watch, but I want to add Supercar. I really loved it. I really enjoyed watching it for the first time. So I definitely recommend that. If you're out there, if you're listening to this, thank you. Then that's the point of what we're trying to do, is say, look, if you enjoy Formula One, then you're going to enjoy this about the series. I thought this had so much crossover with Formula One, apart from the fact it's not open wheel racing. Apart from that, you've got strategy, you've got drivers going at it, you've got cars that are being developed. It's just one to get into, definitely. As I said, I should have listened to my dad. It's a really good series. So I think we won't get too much into what happened in the races. But yeah, it came down to, as I said, that final lap duel in race 3. I was honestly sat there hoping Brock Feeney could get the hat trick, because he was chasing down Payne. I wanted to say Liam Payne. I can't remember his first name, but Payne, for his 3rd race win in this championship series. And he wasn't able to do it. He was 0.055 across the line behind, and he'd opted for to do both of his stops under a safety car, which I thought was a really interesting strategy ploy that I was going to say almost worked, but did work. It was great to see. Like, again, when you're watching Formula 1, if strategy is your thing, then there was definitely strategy. There was definitely that ability to do something that no one else is doing and make it work and turn it into a race win. So seemingly from nowhere, Payne went and won this race. So yeah, it was good racing. So strategy side, where do you sit with that? Is that something that you really enjoy, or do you just accept that as, oh, they got a pit and I gotta make use of that?
No, I enjoy the strategy aspects of racing series, especially the supercars, because if you don't play it right, you're screwed. Because you saw some of the races, the tracks are catas, claustros. Jesus Christ, I don't even know how to speak anymore. They are claustrophobically small, and the cars are so wide, and they need to make some kamikaze moves if they wanted to go ahead. So if they get it wrong, especially on the timing of pit stops, that's why I applaud the strategists from AAA Engineering that put Brock straight up ahead, because he was having a nightmare of the racing up until that point, in my eyes at least, because he had 2 great races, but in a way he kind of screwed himself in the beginning, then made up for in the end. But if he didn't time those 2 stops under the safety car, I don't think he would be anywhere near fighting for the win. He would be probably in the midfield or even back. So
it was kind of because, as I say, we were watching the highlights only, and it suddenly just skips forward, and you sort of look for these players that were towards the top or in the middle, and they suddenly switched over. So that's it. I mean, that's just the thing with watching highlights. You haven't had that full picture, so maybe you sort of watch it. And again, if in future I do end up paying for TNT because it seems like the way to go, then I'm going to be watching the full races and going, I'm going to see what happens more. So it'd be interesting to see really how this plays out over a full race. But strategy is definitely something that I love to see. I sit there watching Formula 1 going, right, I'm going to suggest that Norris pits now. I think I'm on threads normally going, if I'm McLaren, I'm boxing Piastri now, or I think this could be interesting if Leclerc 1 stops from here. I love the strategy. That's like a really big thing. So having that even across a sprint format over 3 races, I think was a massive plus for V8 Supercars. So yeah, I really like that aspect of it. So we'll wrap up there. Louis, thank you so much for joining me and talking about it. It was very clear you're very passionate about this series, which is great to have. Thank you so much for being my guide and talking me through it this weekend. And thank you so much. Yeah, good. I was just gonna say goodbye at this point, but yes, we'll have you back on, I'm sure. But where can people find you? You're on Threads mostly, I'm guessing.
I'm on Threads most of the time, because the community of motorsports there is so vast, and people just can comment it openly and don't get scrutinized by it. I'm on Instagram as well, so they might find me there too. Is the Lovey Doodoo, my dot, if they wanted to find me down there. But yeah, I'm very thankful for the invite. It was a really nice experience. Something I was kind of nervous about doing, because I was like, Jesus, how the hell that's gonna go? I hope I don't stutter too much. I did a few times, but it's part of it, because we are processing information that our mouth wants to talk, but we didn't collectively thought about it at the moment.
I'm as amateur as you are. It was great to have you on as guest, because you've been a long time listener. So that's what I wanted to have, like make this an interactive thing. And no, you've done beautifully. Thank you so much for being on. You've been a fantastic guest. I'm sure I'll get you back on in the future, no doubt. But I will link everywhere people can find you in the notes below. So if you're listening to this and you want to follow Louis, then get in those notes, have a look, find where he is and go and give him a follow, please. But for now, this was the Motorsport review. I've got interesting things coming up. As I say, can't reveal too much, but next week got something very exciting. I'm absolutely delighted to have the opportunity to do something a little bit different, but you'll find out more about that next week. So in the meantime, when we come back, it'll be the Imola Grand Prix, the start of the European season and the next triple header. So we look forward to breaking that down and talking about F1. So thank you for listening. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers not in the UK, not my mother. I do wish her happy birthday, but just not today, not again. And thank you so much for listening. And as Louis did, if you want to be involved and you want to record with me, then please get in contact. Tell me what series that you love, that you enjoy watching, and what I should be focusing on, and we'll get you on. So thank you so much for listening, and good day.